Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Mind Your Mental Matters. I am Yvette, and today I am joined by an incredible woman. She is a media personality. She's a TV and radio broadcaster, a mother, a mental health advocate. This woman was basically an it girl before it girl was even a thing, okay? She goes by the name Penny Lebyane. Hi, Penny. Welcome.
Hello, Yvette. Thank you so much for having me, and hello to everyone who is zooming in.
Yay! So I know you as a media personality because I'm South African, right? But if you were to introduce yourself to people who don't know you, because my audience is from all over the world, like how would you come in and introduce yourself?
Well, I would say hi. My name is Penny Lebyane. I am a South African born, proud African who's passionate about life, and yeah, a village girl who is going global. That's really who I am.
I think that's exactly who you are. And I think one of the things I have to mention is that you are an epitome of a true South African because you are so multilingual, like you put a lot of us to shame. Okay. So kudos to you for that. So
Thank
we have
you.
we have a lot of ground to cover. So let's get right into it. You are a mental health advocate. Let's talk about that. How did you become a mental health advocate and why?
Well, when I had my son, I was diagnosed with a extreme case of postnatal depression, known as puerperal psychosis, which happened to, I think it was 1 in 1,000 at the time. I mean, I don't know what the numbers look like now, but it's like this the usual baby blues that most mothers get, and then there's a puerperal psychosis. So I found myself having to deal with that. I mean, I knew about postnatal depression, but so I was kind of like had read up on it, because I was a mom and I was expect obviously know about what was about puerperal psychosis. So that's what I got diagnosed with, and then I was admitted in hospital, and I was there for like 10 days. So yeah, it's a severe end of this change spectrum in a condition known as postpartum psychosis. This condition causes a woman to experience symptoms that can be very scary for her, and she may hear voices, see things, and things like that. So I got admitted into hospital for 10 days. And in that 10 days, I was obviously heavily sedated, because I couldn't sleep for the first 4 days after I came back, from giving birth. And then I was admitted, and then my body, I was like in an extreme case of like, fight mode, because this fight or flight. I was like on the
Yeah.
extreme case. So from one thought to another and all of that. But then I just had a baby as well. So I was hospitalized. And then while I was in hospital, actually, that time, I realized that with the experience that I was having because of my, use my experience and those platforms and my voice to talk about postnatal depression in South Africa, the impact on mothers, how it's linked to clinical depression, and the experience that young women experience. Obviously, because I'm a young woman, that's the experience that I had had. I'm not I couldn't speak from an experienced man. So I decided there and then that when I come out, I'm going to talk about experience. I'm going to be a voice for it. I remember reading about Brooke Shield. Yes, I was reading about Brooke Shield. That's who I was reading about, and Tom Cruise, sort of like mocking her experience as a mother and
Mm.
all of that. And so I remember there and there saying, okay, I'm going to talk about my experience, and I'm going to be a voice, and I'm going to use the platform that I have to advocate for mental health, especially, from a point of view of a young mother. But then I realized that actually it wasn't just a sudden thing that just happened to me. I could link to the experiences that I've had before I fell pregnant. I realized that I was clinically depressed. I just had never been fully diagnosed, but I did actually go to a psychologist at some point. So when I connected all of those, I realized that, oh, it's actually interlinked. And then I was like, that's it.
You say that you realized this when you after you had your first child, right? But before that, there were signs. So when you were having signs or symptoms of depression, did it hit you that this could be depression, or did you dismiss it as, maybe I'm just feeling down or sad?
So in my case, I was actually not feeling down or sad. I just had a lot of energy that was, unmanageable. And because I had just given birth 4 days, I wasn't feeling any pain. I wasn't tired and I couldn't sleep. So it was like, no, we need to bring you to a certain level. It's almost like I was on a high, So again, that's the thing. When we think depression, people think about feeling sad and down. There's people who just go on an extreme energy overdrive. They're out of balance. So that was the case because I'm naturally an energetic person. So that was my experience. The only time where I would say I was sad or down, it's actually when I look back at my clinical depression way before I even fell pregnant. Where I was feeling withdrawn, where I would be fatigued, where I would just not be interested in any of the things that I used to like. So then, 2 years later, 3 years later, I think, and I felt pregnant, if not even more. Then I realized that, oh, actually, those two were interconnected. It's just at a different time in my, and basically juggling out of two worlds where I go on radio, I'm very excited, I'm very energized, but when I inside again, I go into this depression where I just don't want to do anything, so I was functioning that way. Then now when I felt pregnant and I had this excitement, I just like, it became an overwhelming extreme experience where I couldn't shut down. It's like my brain was overdrive. So that was the experience, that I had. I went to SEDEC, South African Depression and Anxiety Group, introduced myself, and then I just started, being a voice and advocating for their initiatives, from baby blues to, suicide, to where we are today, where we're actually talking about, women and mental health, youth and mental illness, and really just engaging, with professionals within that space, trying to understand the impact of that. Do we have enough psychologists in the country? Children who are like orphan and vulnerable children, how are they affected? Trauma, counseling. So I really just vested myself in knowing as much as I can, so I can be able to be a true voice and an advocate that can add value.
So was this like your natural instinct, or was there a time, because you are now a media personality, you are a well-known person, and also you're very well known for being very confident and outspoken, was there a time where you felt like, oh my gosh, what are people gonna say? How are people gonna look at me? Is this gonna make me look like I'm weak now? Because those are some of the things that are associated with mental illnesses. Did you ever feel that way?
I actually didn't. I think for more than anything else, I really felt like this will give me an opportunity to say that just because you're confident and that just because that you're outspoken, you have a voice, it doesn't mean that when life happens to you, that
you are immortal.
You're flesh and blood like everybody else, that you're hurt, that you know what I mean. So I saw that as an opportunity to do that. And then I remember as well when I was working at the same community station, I found, I did some event around World Mental Health Day, which is obviously happening tomorrow. But, at the time, I was doing an event for like mentally challenged children, for like the schools gathered and they had like a big event, so I feel like even with that, I was sort of like put in that position truly by the grace of God to like work in that space. And so later on, when I had that experience, I could relate and I had an understanding of like the space of mental health and the importance of it. So when I had that experience, it became easy for me to be an advocate because I was like, no, you know, I have a voice, I have a platform, I can talk about this. I know the taboo around it. I know how
Yeah,
when Black people are dealing with mental health, there's easily, you know, people can just throw in issues of like, oh, there's witchcraft, all of that.
exactly.
And then, yeah, so I just literally threw myself into it, and I was, you know, I became very adamant on advocating for, like, you know, talking therapy. Like, it's important to talk about our experiences, that we mustn't be embarrassed about things. And obviously, it wasn't easy in the beginning because a
Mm,
lot of people, including my own personal friends, were like, "Oh, but why are you talking about these things?" And I was like, "Why shouldn't I talk about that? Because I had
yeah,
these experiences, and I'm not gonna keep anything inside, and I'm not gonna bottle up." And then at the same time, you know, when I was hospitalized, you know, I had a therapist coming in. I learned about alternative ways of like looking after yourself instead of like relying on medication. And then I made a personal choice that I don't want to get on, you know, medication outside of when I was in the hospital. Like, I mean, they put you on medication, and then they said to me, you know, but you can't breastfeed when you came out. I said, no, I'm going to drink lots of water. I'm going to express, and I'm going to breastfeed when I
mm,
come out. And that's literally what I did. But more than anything else, I learned about eating healthy. I learned about the importance of exercising. I
mm,
learned about understanding my temperament. I learned about, you know, what my body needs. So, for
mm,
example, I knew that I needed to boost my brain all the time. So I knew that I needed to feed myself with lots of omega-3 and things like that. So I
mm,
changed, you know, my eating habit. I started doing things like I should eat fish 3 times to 4 times a week. I need to
mm.
increase like my vegetables. So instead of me wanting to be reliant on
On
medication, and
medication.
that's that, I knew, yeah, I started learning on like why I don't need to rely on, you know, I was not much of a drinker. Like, I was a social drinker. I've always been a social drinker. So it became a case of like, me and alcohol are definitely not going to be
Not,
friends. Like,
yeah,
I was already like not, you know, I was already not friends with alcohol, but now I had a valid reason to say, this
yeah,
is what it does to you. You know, use it as an escape. You know, I was already like a, you know, an outspoken person. And then I was like a person who was like, it's important for people to talk about, you know, traumatic experiences that you've heard, own your pain, talk about it.
yes,
I literally, you know, layered, you know, stuff that I was already doing. And then I got in touch with South African depression and anxiety, so I can have access to like
more
psychologists and,
resources.
yeah, people that I can be able to refer people to when they talk to me. And then I even went further, to do like a counseling course, you know, and in this case, instance, I did it like theology and psychology, because I knew that also in a South African context, a lot of people run to church when they're
Yes,
dealing with issues of mental illness. So I wanted to
exactly.
understand it from that context, so I can be able to speak from there. And that experience, what it did is that it helped me understand my own life journey, and then I could be able to speak with confidence when I speak to people, to say, you know, even experiences that you've heard as a child, they have an
Mm,
impact on you. You know, and then when people were like, yeah, but I'm Christian and this, and I'm like, yeah, but you still need to talk about these things,
mm,
because you can't get healing if you don't address those. So I really, really just connected even more with other people who work in the space, and I got more empowered, and then I had more confidence to talk about it without the fear of like, what are people going to think? So I found myself talking about things that people were not ready to talk about
talk
10 years,
about.
15 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and really starting conversations that were uncomfortable. And when I look at where we are now, issues of mental health, I'm like, I'm glad that I took that path, because I became a voice in the wilderness.
Yeah.
I became a voice in a voice of reason where people were not ready to talk about stuff.
And I think you still are that voice because it's 2020 now, and you still find some people who are like, why are you talking about this? Why do you talk about this on social media? And I'm like, well, the people who are dealing with mental health issues are on social media. So if you don't talk about it on social media, where else should we talk about it?
Yeah, where should we talk about it? Yeah. So that's true. So that's really what it's become. So for me, it became like social media, magazine interviews that I did,
Mm,
you know, and then it became advocacy work. You know, it became, I will find the psychologist, I'll put them on the radio, I'll ask the tough questions. You know, when they say we need someone to talk about mental health, I'll raise my hand, I'll say I'll do
mm,
it. You know, when they say, you know, personalities. I'll talk about it in the church. I'll go in church. I'll say, people who are hiding in here, we need to talk about stuff. So I went in there. I
Yeah.
had those conversations in women's groups. I went in there. I spoke about stuff. You know, and I just constantly would see, you know, people crying, wanting to talk, people reaching out to me if they've read an article, people coming up to me, and you know, and even when I was like, okay, I feel like I addressed my, you know, the issues I wanted to address. I really basically said, I'm going to continue. You know, I'm going to talk about, and then I was, you know, for me, I was also very honest to say, I am not a medication person. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't be reliant on it, but
Yes.
I want to go through the process. I want to understand how my body works. I want to understand how my mind works. And with that, I became so more empowered. I knew the importance of why I need to drink my water, why I need to sleep, you know, why I need to avoid certain spaces and
Yeah.
energies, how I need to be mindfulness about things, why I need to meditate. And then I've gradually been on the journey, and I look back now in awe, in, you know, on the things that I've just had to learn, and I had to be self-reliant. You know, the relationships that I've built with professionals in that space, you know, and just the evolution of mental health globally. How I've been able to follow the conversation with consistency, and I've constantly been able to bring it to radio, television. So I mean, it's known. Every show that I go on, I bring that on. And then if we're going to be tackling issues that speaks to people's life, I insist on, we need to have a psychologist. We need to debrief people. You know, I went and learned, you know, when I did the counseling, I learned to debrief for myself so that when I do interviews with people, I don't carry that stuff. So people always say, "Oh my God, how do you do these kind of shows?" I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't it affect you? I know how to prepare
Exactly. You know how to
myself for that,
separate
and I know how to
yourself.
debrief. Yeah, I know how to separate myself, and that's really it. Because for me, a part of like why I ended up being clinically depressed was because my work was my life, and my personal life became part of my work. So
Yeah.
I needed to draw the line and
Yes.
build those boundaries. And then
Yes.
you know, once I learned that, you know, and because now I became a mom, it became like that. I learned how to
Yes.
be present. I learned how to be mindful, you know, with my kids. I learned how to like take time out for myself. I learned how to really create boundaries and manage my relationships better. You know, to separate things. You know, to not want to be a pleaser, to not want to be liked, to just assert myself
Yeah.
without feeling like I'm overbearing, or without being apologetic about my position on things, because like,
Yeah.
oh, if I say this, people are not gonna like me. You know,
Yeah.
so all of those things. So it really, really helped me, and I'm grateful that you know, I was sober about it. I didn't want to get on medication. I didn't want to use any other coping stuff. I was just like, that's it, let's go. And
Yeah.
here we are today.
So you spoke about talk therapy being very important. When you saw a therapist, right? I know there's this thing about therapists being culturally competent, and this is a problem that we have in South Africa. A lot of the people who study psychology are
Yeah.
not your average Black people. There aren't enough Black psychologists. And so Black people are like, how do I go to a white person with my Black problems? They don't understand the type of problems us Black people have. They don't see it as a problem in that way, you know? For you, did you find a therapist who was culturally competent? And do you think it's important to have a therapist who's culturally competent?
Oh, most definitely. I think it's very important to have, you know, any form of like professional help that understand your cultural background. And for me, it was at the core of that. So even when I was deliberately doing interviews with people on radio and television, I was very adamant about the psychologists that I brought on. And in, I mean, 10 years, 15 years ago, you know, there are few psychologists that we could count on who would all rotate them, would rotate them on radio, rotate them on television, you know, would rotate them in magazines. So they were the same people. So I know I was part of those people who would find those psychologists and bring them on. So even for my own personal, you know, sessions. So firstly, one of the people that I had in my life was my spiritual mother, who is also a behavioral a specialist. She came from the US, a Black American woman. So that was my first context, because she was able to break down the world of media and entertainment for me, because she had an international experience for that, because I was struggling in that space. Okay. And then helping me find myself within that space. And then I did that. And then when I needed to like really have serious one-on-one session, then I got like a black woman who was a psychologist. And slowly but surely, I started building. I mean, yes, one of my first, I remember, I had like this episode where I was like, no, that's it. I need to go see someone. They need to explain to me why I'm so angry and why I want to lash out or whatever. I went to go see a white woman. And, I just didn't connect. They didn't understand the world that I was living in. And I was like 23, 24. And they didn't understand my world. And I was like, this is not working.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that, Gail came into my life, I had met her years earlier. And then she reached out to me. And then I opened up to her. And then she also had a circle of like other older women. So these were women who, if I was in my 20s, they were like in their 40s, so they could be basically help me through that, even though there was like that big age gap and big disconnect, but they were helping me break down some of those issues. And then it became a case of like, okay, they talk to me about something, and I go back and then I work on myself. It could be for months and whatever. And then I reconnect again, and then slowly, and obviously because of that 10 days that I was admitted, I also got to do a lot of like mapping and learning with the therapist. I learned about like aromatherapy, using oils instead of, so I learned of those things. So I was very, interested in, eating my way to health, exercising for vitality and energy generation. I was very interested in self-care, which is like what we use now. At the time, we were not saying that. So I knew that, taking a bath in lavender, will help me relax. Drinking chamomile tea will help me relax.
It's almost like
so I started learning about those kind of things. Yeah. So I took the long route. Yes, I really did take the long route. But I was, and I in hindsight, I'm grateful because, and this is like my late 20s, into my, so basically, first it was like, you have to do this so that you feel better. Then it became a practice. And then at some point you lose track, and then and then I get back on it, and then I fine tune it, and then I personalize it. So by the time I got to like, my late 30s towards my 40s, I knew like, I love walking. I don't like running. I like silence. Sometimes, I prefer quiet time. I knew that, I need to say what I feel and what I mean, and find a way to how to articulate it, and what my triggers are. People who make me nervous. How do I deal with that? Spaces that make me nervous. What are the things? How do I deal and cope with work and my fears? And then things like, okay, I feel overwhelmed. I should walk away from things. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I was doing all of that obviously privately, and then I also had to have this public life, and then how to because I also felt like, because I did talk about my puerperal psychosis, I felt like when I'm ready to talk about it next time, I must continuously talk about it, to talk about my progress, and show how I'm progressing, rather than I mentioned it once and then I was like, yeah, once upon a time she had depression.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted, so I became consistent about it, and then I read a lot. I read a lot about like international development and policies in the UK and in the US, and then how, what my role can be in media. And I constantly did that. And it helped me also in my work, in terms of like my ability to connect with my audiences and when I do interviews. And at first it made a lot of people uncomfortable, I must say. But I was very adamant in that I'm gonna, stand in my truth, and then I knew that it's gonna have positive impact, because in the industry that we're in, people can throw themselves into drugs, they can take alcohol, they can find all sorts of ways to escape. And then I literally, for me, I was like, no, I'm not going in any of those routes, that route, and I'm just gonna stick to this: eating healthy, exercising. I mean, at some point I was even a sleep advocate. I would tell people, you all don't sleep enough. Sleep is, and then they'll be like, what is she talking about? And and when the conversations would develop about how's the impact of sleep in mental health, I was there. I understood exactly what they talked about.
Yeah.
Women and balancing, at home with children and work and your career. And I could speak from a place of truth. I could say, when I don't cope, I don't cope. I don't do guilty parenting. And they'd be like, what
Yeah.
do you mean? We always feel guilty as a mom. I was like, no, I don't feel guilty. When I'm not with my kids, I'm not with my kids. And it's okay.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
and I was like, I knew that if I did that to myself, it's gonna affect my health. And and then when I'm at work, I need to focus on my work and deliver on my work. I don't want pressure. I don't want people screaming down my neck. I just want to
Mm.
work and enjoy what I'm doing for that 3 hours, 4 hours, and leave. And when I'm at home, don't bother me about whatever
Yes.
I'm at. So then all of those things help me strengthen my boundaries, understand my triggers. My no became my no, my yes became my yes. I did what I wanted to do. When I don't want to do it, I didn't do it. And I started really just defining, how I want to lead my life, because it was always about, does it affect my health? Does it steal
Mm.
my energy? Does it overwhelm me? Do I feel exhausted? Because all of those things, if they did, they became triggers and they were not good for my health. And then I'll be struggling and I'm not coping. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
I'm
And it
so
helped
glad
me
you
in the long
mentioned
run.
that. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because just listening to you, I'm taking away so many things. It's important to decide which route you want to take, and you decided to take the longer route. Not saying that
Yes,
medication is not okay. For those who prefer to use medication, they can, but also there's people who
they
prefer
can.
to
Yeah,
take a longer route, which you took, and it's very beneficial, because that then means that you become self-reliant. You understand yourself, you understand your
yes.
body, you understand your mind. It's so important. So let's bring it now to social media. Okay, research suggests
Mm.
that South Africans spend over 8 hours online, and about a third of that they spend on social media, right? What do you think people are
Mm.
doing on social media? Why do you think people are spending so much time on social media?
Well, they're looking for to connect. That's
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to connect, not as in like to build relationship, but to escape, from their own reality, which is a very dangerous concept.
So
You know,
is
uh,
it, sorry, let me just stop you right. Is it to connect or to disconnect? Are they connecting to
so
connect or to
so
disconnect?
it's connecting to disconnect.
It's
It's
connecting to
almost like they're
disconnect.
escaping. Yeah, it's like they're running away from themselves.
Yeah.
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 So it's like, so they're running away from themselves. So also again, and I always, I'm like, oh, I feel, I'm like, I'm so fortunate. And then, and I speak, so affirmingly, because I've had to come to this place to do that. Because,
Mhm.
when I was going through this process with my journey, with my depression, I learned a lot of those things. I learned the importance of connecting with myself.
Yeah.
I learned the importance of like disconnecting when I don't want to connect. I learned, sort of like managing my energy,
Mhm.
and this is before the advent of social media. So when
Mhm.
social media came, you know, I knew my limits. I know, and I realized that, I scared a lot of people because I knew where to go and how far to go.
Yeah.
And then I could pull back when I want to pull back. Like, no, I didn't have to rely on anything external to say, you know, get out,
Yeah.
and even when, I saw people have meltdowns, you know what I mean? And then I will just be there. I'll be like, that person's gonna have a meltdown. So I could be able to foresee certain things, but at the same
Exactly.
time, yeah, I could be able to push certain things, without losing myself to the process, because it gave me a sense of understanding myself, because I knew, when I wanted to disengage, I just disengaged. Like, I could be on social media and not answer to anybody, and then
Mm.
when I want to answer, I just answer,
Mhm.
and then I leave, and then I stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so I watched a lot of people gradually, you know, because at first they start responding, and then they get into it, and then it drags them, and then I'll be
Mhm.
like, oh my god, it's gonna suck them in, but because I had already been working on stuff like that, and obviously because I was on radio, in hindsight,
Mhm.
I was used to engaging and pulling and engaging. So I used a lot of that to help myself to also manage. But also, it was sad to watch people who, you figured they had a sense of self and control, and they understood, media dynamics, and you saw them, you know, fall apart in that space because they really didn't have a sense of who they are.
Yeah.
But they thought that social media could be a place that gives them identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was stuff like that. I mean, for the longest time, you know, like firstly, you know, I got on Facebook and I was on radio. So Facebook, you know, I was one of those people who are using Facebook and then I'm on radio and television. And then slowly, you know, got on it, got to understand. And then same thing with Twitter. I remember getting on Twitter, you know, engaging in. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's new and whatever, you know, and just, you know, slowly. And then I remember Instagram coming, and I remember going, I don't want to get on Instagram because I really don't have the energy to take pictures and post, take pictures and post, take pictures and post, you know. And it was like that. And then slowly, you know, when I decided, like it wasn't a case when it wasn't like I said, everybody get on Twitter, you know,
Yeah, it
do it.
wasn't like
So I could
FOMO.
determine. Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was like I will get on. These are my terms. So,
Yeah.
and even when in my space, you know, you would work with PR people, you would work with managers, and they'll say, this is what you have to do. And I'll be like, no, that's not what I want to do. You know, I don't have to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of those things, you know, helped me because I could determine how I want to engage, you know, and even in moments, you know, where some people were like, oh my God, you know, she's lost it. I'll be like, no, I haven't lost it, you know, because that's your threshold, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I could, yeah, that's your threshold. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I know exactly what I'm dealing because I had been able to set myself, you know, a pace of some sort, and I really think it's because of my private experience with mental health. You know, I could say this is a meltdown. This is not a meltdown.
Yes.
You know, this person is driving you here. Are you gonna go there? Do you understand where you're going? You know, pull back when I want to pull back. And then at the same time, if I want to engage on something and make a point, I can make a point and stand strongly on it because I was determined to say, and I'm intentionally going here with this, and this is what I want to do. You know, and it wasn't driven by any other external stuff. It was sort of like me understanding how mental health works, you know, managing, you know, myself on social media, managing my profile and things like that. But I learned all of those because of the
background work
long
that
route
was
that I
happening.
took. Yeah, the background that I had done. Yeah.
So now you're speaking from your personal experiences, right? But you're also a media personality, a celebrity that a lot of people look up to. So I think the next question coming from you will make so much sense to a lot of people. How much of what we see on social media is real and how much of it is fake, in your opinion?
Look, I think because of the thing that I referred to previously, where I said, you know, people have managers and PR people, you know, determining what they should be and how they should position themselves on social media. You know, a lot of it is created. Okay, it started as being created. You know, and we can talk about whether it's curated or created. You know, to position people a certain way. You know what I mean? Because people wanted to attract following, people wanted to position themselves so that they can attract certain brands and whatever. You know, someone like myself, because I got on radio and I had a public profile before the emergence of social media, there are a lot of things that I wasn't forced to jump on.
Yeah.
I did not to create awareness about who I am and get attention. People knew who I was.
Yeah.
And then, so it was a case of like, how do I build on that? And then the question that I always struggle with was like people saying, oh, but this is what you have to do. And I was like, but I don't have to do any of that. For me, I just have to be myself on this platform. You know what I mean? And if any brand wants to engage with me, they must engage with me because of who I am. And trust you me, that meant that I don't sit in certain categories. I lose out on certain opportunities. But again, it is a long route that I chose to take because it would have been easy for me to try and make myself something that I'm not, so I can attract, you know, instant, you know, money and opportunities and whatever and followings. But I would have moved away from the essence of who I am. So I chose to hold on to that. But a lot of the people who were new in the industry, you know, they were basically formulating their identity on social media. So I
Mm-hmm.
already had an identity before social media existed. So it was a case of like, am I willing to give up my identity that I existed before social media to have a new identity, or do I want to carry it through and understand that the following that I have outside of social media, is good enough wherever it is, and that the new following that I will create on social media will have to buy into me for who I am, not what I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
And that's really what it became, and that's why my following has grown organically.
Yeah.
And I've never really chased to have millions, because I work on radio. Like when I walk on the streets for years, I meet a lot of old people, mature men and women and children, and half of those people are not necessarily all on Twitter.
Yes.
Some of them are on Facebook. So I've come to know that I have different segments of audience who are spread in different levels. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I have an audience, and then I take comfort in that. So I don't confuse myself by, oh my God, I need to have so many followers on
So
Instagram,
many
therefore that makes me
likes.
relevant. So
Yeah.
So my relevance is not based on how many followers I have on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because I know when I walk in the street, people who are not on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook know of my work and the work that I do. And also I have other platforms. But I also understand there's people who are only visible on Twitter.
Yeah.
There are people who are only visible on Instagram. But I'm visible on television, on radio, in magazines, in newspapers, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and I determine my visibility as well. I mean, as a mother, for example, I mean, there are brands who be like, yeah, Penny's a mother, and then, but she never really shows her children. You know what I mean? That's my choice. I show them when I want to show them. My children are not a gimmick that I use to attract brands who want to sell stuff to children. They're not a gimmick.
Yeah.
If does that mean I'm less of a mother? No. Does it mean that I have no interest in children's issues or whatever? No. I'm still as visible, as vocal on those issues, but I don't have to pawn my children, to attract a brand, because my children are not part of me attracting brands. You know what I mean? I'm not a mother because my children must be visible. I'm a mother because I'm a nurturer, because I understand issues of motherhood, because I have a lived experience as a mother. You know what I mean? All of those things. So any brand that wants to work with me must work with me from that context. They mustn't work with me because I have pre-packaging. And I understand that there's image and all of that stuff, but because I've done PR and I understand the dynamics of radio and marketing and whatever, and how things are packaged to look a certain way, I just choose where I allow the thing to go. I'm like, no, I'm not going further than that. It's not an act. It must still be organic, as much as
Exactly.
possible.
Yeah, I really appreciate
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about you, because I think that's one of the things that also separates you from a lot of people and makes you a lot more relatable, because it's not about followers. And I think this is a very important message to put out to people who are not even media personality, like even to just the average person, to remind them, it's not about a following. It's not about how many people follow you, because you can have millions of people following you while you're busy doing nothing. You know what I mean? Or you could be doing something really valuable and being yourself and have 3 followers. And that's enough, because then you have real organic people following what should be followed, instead of just following trends and chasing numbers. So it's very important what you're saying, that people shouldn't just be focusing on having followers and having likes. I think that's where we also lose the plot, because then you start to be like, oh, I can't post this because it's not Instagram worthy. Oh, I can't do this because I don't know, my age mates, maybe they look a certain way, or they have a certain, and these things also do affect a person's mental health, because that's when people start to go into depression, they start to be bulimic, they start to go through all sorts of eating disorders. So it's very important for people to not follow trends and not go with the wind and not be chasing numbers and followers and likes, but stay true to who you are and stay true to your cause. I like that. And that.
Because all of those things, they chip at the essence of who you are. And I think, because I was mindful about my position and role in like, I speak to issues of mental health, I had to be very careful in what I engage in and how I care, because I can't say one thing and do the other.
And
Do you know
not
what I
be
mean? Like
hypocritical about it. Exactly.
yeah. So I had to be very genuine about it. I had to be like very conscious of it, of like how I go about it. So I didn't want to create that confusion. I didn't want to create this perception, and then one minute I'm advocating, because I understood that mental health is a holistic thing for me.
Yeah.
It's not just about the illness, but it's about prevention. It's about accountability, personal responsibility, healing, the journey that you go through, and all the different aspects, and body image and all of those things. So I wanted I held myself accountable, in all of those things. So I was like, I need to be very careful how I approach social media. I can't be feeling the pressure of like, oh my God, I also want to have 1 million followers or 2 million, whatever. Because really, my voice, for me, social media is just another, platform. Like I have other platforms.
Yeah.
It's not an end all and be all. So it was like, it's just another layer. It will build, it will grow itself organically, and at the right time, if it shoots up to whatever level, shoots up to whatever level, but it shouldn't dilute my message and my position.
Yeah. I remember one time you posted pictures of yourself in a bikini, and these pictures were not retouched, right? And these pictures spike a whole lot of conversation. People are saying, "Oh, Marapeni, how could you do this?" And then there are people who are like, "Yes, girl, do the damn thing." Why did you do that? Why did you feel why, I don't know, what happened? You took a picture and then what happened?
So I think in the last 5 years, I have been deliberate on getting into like the physical aspect of me and the body. I've always been um a a spiritual and a mind person, and changing mindset, and speaking to things and questioning and whatever. But I had never been about look at me and see me. You know what I mean? And then again, with the emergence of Instagram, everybody was saying, see me, but they were not talking. You didn't know what they stood for. You didn't know their voice. They were just like,
They're just
let
Instagram
me,
models.
so yeah, so that's the Instagram model and whatever.
Yeah.
So me, I know that I'm a spiritual person with a soul. That's like emotions and a mind, and then with a body. And also, I come from a generation where you were on radio, uh, you're on television, but I didn't subscribe to selling sex. I didn't subscribe to I'm selling, this is how, I was subscribed to, can you hear me? My mind is functioning. Can you hear my heart and my passion? And I'm concerned about these issues, and we need change here. And then it was like that. And then I became a mother. And then your body goes. And then I was also never a girl in my 20s who was, look at how pretty I am or whatever. It was never about that. It was about, how smart am I? Do I make sense? Am I intelligent? Am I good enough? I'm good enough as the next guy. I deserve to be here and all of that, because that's what my radio was about. And that's what my television was about. I didn't want to be just a pretty girl on television. I wanted to be a girl who has impact, who has content, who has substance. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then as I entered my mid 30s towards my 40s, I came to a place of now, I'm starting to appreciate myself, where I'm like, actually, I don't have to prove to anybody how smart I am. I am smart. I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
I work hard. I'm a gifted person. I'm kind. I'm all of these things. And at the same time, I function. And then it became, I actually also look after myself. I eat healthy. I have eating healthy affects a healthy mind. I have good skin and all of those things. And then I was like, oh my goodness, actually, I have an amazing body. So I started embracing that. I started looking at myself, because, for me, healing and experiences are inside out, because I'd been doing the work on myself, on the inside or whatever. Then I allowed myself to remove the scale and start to see myself, because I started saying, you need to look at yourself, you need to see yourself, you need to appreciate yourself. And then once I started talking like that, I started hearing, people appreciating me, and how I look, and now I could take the compliment, because I didn't feel I was not good enough. I didn't feel that I was not less enough. I didn't feel that I was not heard. And then I was like, you hear me now, because all along you just wanted to see me and not hear me. Now that you hear me, now you have to see me. You really, now you can see me, because I didn't want this thing of that you just see me, you don't hear me. It doesn't work like that, and then it became like, oh yeah, she's always been dressing, beautifully and elegantly and whatever. Then it became, women are going to buy bums. Women, women are skin lighting. Women are enlarging their boobs. Women are doing all sorts of things. And then I took a mirror and I looked at myself. I said, my goodness, I have a good cup of boobs in front of me. I have a beautiful derriere bum. I have a beautiful waist and whatever. But that's who I am. I exercise for vitality and for energy. I don't really exercise for weight loss. You know what I mean? Because for me, exercise is linked to my mental health. Yes, I'm confident, I dress beautiful and all of that. And some people comment on my body all the time. And I was like, I need to start talking about body positivity in a way that is linked to me, in me being comfortable. Oh, I have cellulite like everyone else. You know what I mean? And then I was like, this thing of that you must feel ashamed because you have cellulite is just out of order. The same approach that I had with mental health. I was like, just because I'm a big boned girl who says I've been in magazines, I knew how they retouch stuff and whatever, and I was like, no, actually, I got tired of being told, you can't wear yellow, you can't wear this, you can't do that, you must always wear black. I was like, no, stuff it. I don't want any of these rules that they've been putting on us because you work in media. They decide, oh, you're too short, oh, you're too fat, oh, you're too this. No, I'm not too any of those things. I'm going to actually own my own image and how I want to do it. I did a photo shoot, in my briefs and sequence. I directed it myself. I put out all those pictures. And, I'm not a skinny girl. And I was like, I don't care. I don't have to be.
You're not even trying to be a skinny girl.
And I'm not trying to be a skinny girl. I'm not trying to be a skinny girl. And I was like, I'm not trying to be a skinny girl. But I was like, but am I confident? Am I beautiful? Do I dress well? Do I carry myself? I actually do all of those things. And besides, there's lots of women who look like me, who feel comfortable in their bodies. And there's a lot of men who appreciate someone like myself. And I appreciate myself even before those people appreciate themselves. So I was like, actually, maybe I was like, actually, you need to start speaking on that, because you give voice to even more women who are saying, we're not skinny, we're not fat, we're just ourselves. Exactly. You know what I mean? And then even if you're big, if you're a fat girl and you're happy like that, I'm happy for you. But just because I'm not one extreme, because it's either you must be too skinny or you must be too big. It's like, what about all of us? It's either you must be light skinned or you must be too dark.
Exactly.
What about the rest of us? You know what I mean? So and then I started saying, actually, I'm gonna put out these pictures. First of all, I shot the pictures, and I was like, okay, Penny, are you ready to put out? I mean, I think it was in 2017, 2018. I put out that picture, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with Penny? But I did it gradually again. I started with exercising. I'm wearing ties. I'm going to the beach. I'm wearing a bikini. There I am, slowly on holiday, and then boom. But I also realized that people are very slow to react. I had put out pictures of myself in bikinis for years. It's just that the ones in 2020, it really got their attention, because I was really like, I think that the high waist pen briefs also got that. But the reality of it is, I'm a woman who's comfortable in her own skin, and I am healthy. I have boobs. I have bum. Women go looking for boobs and bum, guys. People do all sorts of things.
Real talk. That's true.
And that's true. So I literally said, this is it. I'm feeling fabulous. I'm feeling sexy. Because that's the other thing. The older I got, then I got to a place where I'm very comfortable owning my sensuality and, you know, and my sexiness and my femininity without being apologetic about it.
Yeah.
You know, without me feeling like, oh, okay, I don't know, you know, I should be doing that. No,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like I can't be trapped in my own body. And I know from dealing with mental health, you can be trapped in your mind, but you can also be trapped in your own body, where, you know, I look back at pictures of myself, you know, where I thought, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm not looking good. And I'm like, I look so skinny and unhealthy here. What was going on? You know, all of those things.
Yeah. And you know, you talk
And it's,
about,
yeah.
sorry, you talk about people are very slow to react. I think it's the same also when it comes to mental health, because you've been talking about it and people are only coming up now and saying, actually, she's been saying this. It's the same with the body image concerns, you know. People feel these things, people see these things, but because social media has sold us this idea that you have to be a certain way, or your PR people come and say, yo, you have to look like this, you have to look like that, and that's what we see. People automatically think that's how you should be. So when you came out and you're like, no, I want to be like this, this is how I am right now, and this is what I want to embrace right now, it talks to so many people, because it's like, actually, I'm like that too, you know. The same way, like, we shouldn't feel embarrassed. Nobody should feel embarrassed to say, I have depression, but I'm confident and I'm a celebrity. You shouldn't feel embarrassed that you are confident in your celebrity and you have cellulite, because it's part of life, you know what I mean? It's like a natural progression of life, and it's not something that we should be ashamed of. And I think this is what social media does.
Yeah, it's actually media in general, because remember, you know, what we're seeing on social media, social media is like a part of media that emerged in the last 10 years or so.
Yes.
But that's what media has been doing for years, for decades.
Doing.
They've been saying, they've been saying you're too fat, especially as black women. I mean, being in the media industry for as long as I had, we had to deal with, you know, your hair is not good enough, your shade is not good enough, your height is not good enough, your accent is not good enough, your enunciation is not good enough. And it's like all of those things, you know, it's just that now in the age of social media, we are even able to label those things and call them what they are. But at the same time, because there's filtering on the phone, people can filter themselves and they can do exactly what the media was doing, you know, to celebrities and newspapers. They can do that to themselves. So also there was another thing for me. I was saying, I know exactly what the media has been doing with doctoring, imaging, or whatever. Why would I do the same? Because if I complain about being doctored on the cover of a magazine, why am I doctoring myself, you know, on Twitter? Exactly. So even if I'm going to do something, for example, if I'm going to go, like recently, I've been doing gut health healing. You know, I've been doing the EMS, you know, muscle training. I show it for what it is. I interview the people that I do it. So even now, you know, I'm saying if I'm considering to do any plastic surgery, for example, I'm gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna hide. I'm not gonna pretend. And I've seen too many people suddenly wake up, they have a six-pack, and we all know that they've been to doctors and they're lying to us. You know, they're lying to people and saying, oh, I work out so hard and I eat whatever. And if you ask them what exactly they do, they can't explain.
They don't know.
You know, so they don't know. You know what I mean? And it's like that. So, and then it's like I went out and I wanted to find out true information, and then I want to share it openly, because I don't want to sell a perception. I don't want to sell a false picture about myself. You know what I mean? And because I'm comfortable in myself. You know, yes, the other day I was doing this whole cellulite treatment thing with this doctor. I was like, okay, does it really work? I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it doesn't change my life, because I've already taken a picture of myself with my cellulite. So it doesn't really bother me, you know. And at the same time, because of my profile, I have an opportunity to support a woman's business who does that, because there's other people who really just want that. They will do anything and spend all money to do with it. But I have an opportunity to try it out and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But my life is really not dependent on it. My life is not dependent on I have cellulite or I don't have cellulite. Trust you me, I sleep peacefully at night with my cellulite.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we know, okay. So that leads me to my next question. I read an article, I think it was last month. In the UK, they're saying that celebrities, they want to pass a law that celebrities should not post edited pictures anymore because of the impact it has on the mental health of people. So now my question,
on the health of people.
yeah. So now my question to you is, do you think that celebrities, say in South Africa, have a responsibility to at least say just how much editing has been done on their pictures? For example, let's say now somebody posts a picture on Instagram or whatever, right? And you can clearly see, Uguti, no, this nose has been worked on, this waist, like girls are removing their ribs now to have these bodies, right? But do you think that
Yeah, they're
people have,
removing their ribs in their pictures. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
do you think, no, they're removing their ribs in real life,
Yes, yeah, in real life,
you
yes, in
know?
real life, yes,
So,
yeah.
but
Um,
do you think that people of influence have a responsibility to say just how much editing has been done on their images, so that it puts less pressure on their followers? Or do you think, Uguti, no, you must just be strong if you're on social media?
no, I mean, again, and that's my mental health advocacy hat. It wouldn't allow me to. I really think that people that have public profiles and they are in a space of influence, they have a responsibility. At the end of the day, people make their individual choices, but you are in that space, you influence and you have impact on people. And I think that the responsible thing to do, especially in this time and age that we live in, knowing the impact, of mental health, and just the challenges that it presents in the world. And then if we're going to use the South African context, we are an emerging economy of some sort. We've seen, for example, in the last 10, 12 to 10, 10 to 12 years, how people started chasing this image on Instagram. People want to have a perfect husband with perfect cars and perfect children, living in the most expensive houses with fancy bags. And let me tell you what that led to. That led to, you know, people wanting to steal money so they can maintain these lifestyles. Things have led to young women wanting to be with certain men who can pay for certain lifestyles. Young women chasing certain, people for access and doing all sorts of things, to have access to money. That stuff it's psychologically eroded a sense of self and confidence in people, and it's because of certain images and positioning that people have been portraying on social media. People getting into entertainment industry, thinking when you get into entertainment industry you make millions, because they want to be carrying expensive bags. No, it's a lot of work, and people are not being paid that money. They are collecting money elsewhere, and then they use being in media and on radio, sort of like as a front, for them doing other stuff. And that's not healthy, because an 18-year-old girl thinks, if I get on radio, this is what I'll do. And then some guy says, yeah, sleep with me, you'll get there. And then they sleep with a guy, and then they don't get there. And then they realize they have to sleep with that guy's boss and somebody else. Do you realize it's psychotic. It's a lot. So, and also this thing that then they portray that, and then they come out after the fact, if maybe they were in some relationship and they're like, this person did this for me, or they don't even come out, they move on to another person who can sustain that further. All of that stuff is a cop out. At least there must be some truth, somehow. So if they're going to be doing things, especially now, if you're doing stuff, at least those are bags. But if you're doing that physical stuff, people are changing their noses. I mean, this plastic surgeon doctor was saying to me the other day, I was doing an interview with him. He was saying people come to his surgery and they say, I want a penny Lebyane butt, I want a penny Lebyane nose. And then I was laughing because I was like, really, people do that? He was like, yes. But now imagine the people who are doctoring their own image and they don't look like that. They end up going to the same doctor with these social media things and saying, this is what I want to look like. So actually, I also heard that they're saying that they want to remove filters or something like that.
They
because
said that
people are going.
Yeah, people are saying that they want to look like Snapchat filters. You're talking about these Snapchat filters.
I mean, what is...
People are going to the doctor and saying, this is how I look with the Snapchat filter. Make me look like this.
I want to look like this every day. I mean, so the doctors are saying to me, doctors were saying, yo, we can't, this thing is a lot, you know, and that's what it is. So it's the danger of it. I mean, I was laughing when you were saying, yeah, people say they want to have a bum like you. I was like, that's so cute and it's so funny at the same time. You know what I mean? But also for me, it was affirming because I just basically said, okay, I love my bum and that's it. You know, I'm embracing it and done.
Yeah.
You know, I started celebrating those things. I started saying, they want bums that are like this. I have a bum. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, people want when I you know, a nose like this, I have it. So I just started saying, people want a 34 cup, I have it. I just started identifying the things about myself that I appreciate. And once I did that, I'm like, it's cool, I'm good. You know, looking after my skin, you know, consulting, obviously, you know, just making sure that I am doing a lot of preventional work. I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising, you know, and I'm mindful of stuff that I do so that I don't get to a level where I'm like, oh, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done, but with pace, you know what I mean? Like I haven't Botoxed my face, I haven't done anything, you know, and I'm happy with it because I'm like, I'm looking after.
Yeah, that's really great. Let's bring it back to the Black community, right? It's 2020 now. Why do you think that Black South Africans in particular, I will speak for them because this is where the major problem is, in my opinion, right? Why do you think that mental health issues are still a taboo in the ghetto? Why do you think that people are still ill-informed like this when it comes to mental health? They're still saying it's witchcraft, still saying, hey, it's because you beat your mother. Why do you think we're still there?
The myriad of issues. It's our socialization, you know, it's our exposure. It is also the lack of exchanging of information and the misunderstanding of life, the journey of life and experiences. Because one of the things that we suffer from is you know, is that we spend a lot of time looking at like at differences versus what similarities that we have. Do you know what I mean? And it's also a thing that holds us back even when we're dealing with other cultures. You know, the thing that constantly makes us think that we're inferior is because we've never come to a place of saying, listen, you know, we've got same brain capacity that white people have. There's nothing different about us. Our blood is red as them. You know what I mean? So it's the opposite of that in the case of when we're dealing with each other. It's like, no, I have nothing in common with either. So therefore, I don't, you know, So that thing is the same thing that makes thing that, you know, I can't be the same as equal as white people because, you know, I mean, they're not the same as me, but our brain is the same. You know, we have the same organs. You know what I mean? The only thing is our tone of skin. That's that. And it's an enlightenment thing that we want to have, that we should have. That, you know, it's a freeing of the mind experience that we want to have. And I'm not saying, you know, witchcraft doesn't exist. You know, people who believe in witchcraft, they believe that it exists. And then again, it's a belief. It's about that. If you believe it exists, it exists. And there are people who spend time there to do all sorts of evil things because energy is energy.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, and we are energy, and people can influence that. But once you're aware that, you know, you have to allow that energy, and then also if you understand that once you come to the knowledge of something, it's revealed, it has no power over you, then and that's that. You know what I mean? But you can't help it if you were socialized in a different way, and then, you know, you've got this paralysis about you know, people bewitching you, you know, people doing something. That's that. It's the same way when, you know, the things that Black people do, like, oh my God, now that I have money, everybody must know that I have money, and then they must buy all these fancy cars and fancy bags, you know, and then before you know it, then they show us where they live, and we know where they show us their children on social media, and you're like, you're just exposing yourselves unnecessarily. You know what I mean? It's all of those things. Again, it's about exposure, socialization, but also lack of a will to really do the work on yourself and say, okay, Penny, So
what's wrong?
keep on now. Yeah, what's wrong? What are the dynamics in your family? How have those affected you? What are you doing personally to change that narrative? What are the things that you can live with? What are the things that you can't live with? What are the things that you like? They're over there. I deal with them when I'm over there. You know what I mean? Like really interrogating yourself, doing an interview with yourself. So people don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. Men and women equally. They're looking for a quick way out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no quick way out. They want they want to live a lifestyle, not a life. You know what I mean? They want to create a perception, not to have a lived experience. So those are the other things that are challenging, is because they don't look at, say, oh, what can happen to Yvette can happen to me. What can I learn from that?
Yes.
They don't want to admit that we are all fallible. We can fall into any situation, but we can also learn from others and then avoid those experiences by saying, wow, what happened to that person can happen to me.
Yes.
And if it can happen to them now, I can learn from that experience to make sure that it doesn't happen to me. It doesn't mean that you're better than that person. It just means that you are connected to them as human being because you can learn from them. So they separate themselves. And then when the thing happened to them, they're like, I didn't think it'll happen to me. I'm like,
yeah.
What do you mean you didn't think it'll happen to you? It's happening everywhere.
Who are you?
They do it with crime. Who are you? They do it with crime. They do it with relationships. They do it with, now we're dealing with gender-based violence. Like, oh, I never thought that could happen. No, you must think it'll happen to you first and do everything to avoid it, rather than think it will never happen to me and do nothing.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so important. I think also this is one of the things, this is one of the reasons I do my videos, is that, you shouldn't wait for something to happen to you for you to know, okay, there's depression, I think people should stay knowing. You should know that there's something called depression, there's anxiety, there's bipolar disorder, and not think, it's their problem. Who's their problem? Do you know what I mean?
Who's their problem? Yeah, it's exactly that. That's exactly what I mean. Same thing with crime, same thing with whatever. People go, oh, that will never happen to me.
Yeah.
Oh, no. My child will never struggle with suicide or depression.
Yeah.
You must first think, it can happen to me. Yes. What is it that I can do? What will I do if it happened to me? And then you're like, okay, these are the things I can do. And then you can also say, okay, now that I know that these are things that I should do if it happens to me, okay, what can I do to prevent it from happening to me? Then you work backwards.
Yes.
You start with, okay, so, but they don't want to do that. They wait and say, they sit and say, it's not gonna happen. And then it happens, and then they're like not prepared for it. It's like, how?
And then it happens, and then they're like,
we all know all this. There must be some. No, about event uyangimonela.
That's so true. That is so true. I don't know why, but I like that. You should work backwards. You should think about this thing happening to you, and then you equip yourself with the resources. So should it happen, God forbid. I think this is another thing that I have with a lot of Christian people who don't want to talk about mental health issues because they're like, oh no, as a praying person, oh no, I'm like, as a praying person, if you get cancer, you still go to the doctor, don't you? And then you pray that you get the right doctor, you pray that the chemotherapy works. So why can't you do that when it comes to mental health? We're not saying, Uguti, don't pray, but also pray that you find the right therapist. Also pray that you find the right help. Also pray that you understand what exactly is going on with you. You know what I mean? Instead of this thing, you're going to say, oh no, God forbid, it will not happen. Yes, God forbid, it doesn't happen. But what happens when it does happen? You know?
Yeah. And also I think, in trying to, we also have to admit, the trauma that comes with the experience that we've had. And I'm going to focus on South Africa because that's where we are. But generally, as Black people, the trauma of being Black, worldwide, the trauma of being, in South Africa, the trauma of apartheid, the trauma of poverty, the things that comes with that, whether it's growing up in the township, whether it's being displaced. I mean, I went to a township school, for example, and my goodness, I remember how I used to envy all the children who went to multiracial schools. When I listened to them about the trauma that they had experienced in these Model C schools, I'm like, thank God I didn't go there. Because I never had, because it's just another trauma that they went through of being this child living in these two worlds, trying to adapt to the school. You have these white people who are constantly rejecting you, and they're saying you're a better this or you're less that, and then you must go back to your very people, and then you don't fit in. That's very traumatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean? So all of the trauma that comes with what came with, a segregation and apartheid and all of that stuff, that's just trauma that is like external. And then there's just trauma of growing up as a child, and then your sexuality, and you changing and becoming a young woman. That's just all other stuff. There's trauma of like, your parents are not there, and then you growing up with your siblings. You know what I mean? Now compound all of those things. So what are you talking about? And then now black people, and then they run to church. Let's pray about it. We don't talk about it. They don't even talk to God about it. They don't even say, God, I am depressed. I mean, really. They don't even say, God, I am sad.
It's almost like you should, because you are black, automatically you should be able to just take on all of these things, and you should just be strong throughout all of it. We can't still be having that narrative.
No, we can't have that narrative, and it hasn't worked, and we should know better. And for me, that's what I meant when I say, having my child was almost like a blessing in disguise. And then I experienced that depression and anxiety, because what it did, it forced me to look back at my life before I had that child, so that I can deal with all my issues, and that I had felt. I mean, I lived with my grandmother when I was with my grandparents when I was young. I didn't live with my parents. I started asking myself, did that affect me? Did it actually bother me? Did I miss my mom? How did I feel about that? Now that I'm old, when I look back, am I angry with my mom for not being there? Okay, how do I articulate? How did my mother feel? Is she trying to make up for that? How have I adjusted? Does that affect how I deal with people? You know what I mean? And then I started reading up on it. I started reading up, that, I just kept it moving all the time. Like, I had no time for attachments and people. Like, I was just like, okay, so, you can't do that with me, fine, next. I didn't know the concept of, like, I must say, okay, let's try and work it out. I didn't. I was just like, it's not working out. Okay, cool. But so that is why, my experiences in my 20s when relationships didn't work out, I was shocked. I was like, how? This thing must work. They just say you try it.
What are you doing?
What I mean? Because all along when I was not doing it, I was like, this is a waste of my time. When I do this thing, it must just work. Boom, you get into the first one. Hey, it doesn't work. And then you're like, hey, bo, isn't this things that's just supposed to work? You show up, you're here, I'm here. This thing must just work. I've done everything that I normally do. I show up, and they're like, no, you're dealing with this person and their emotions. I was like, I when I get my, I can't do this thing. This is too complicated. It's a lot. But now, for me, I realized, okay, I didn't have a practice run in my teens. I was not interested. I was focused on other stuff. Maybe, my attachment issues are there because, I'm avoiding disappointment. So I set the law, the thing must work. It doesn't work. All right, what are the things that I need to do? I need to go back and address and then and consciously say, those are my issues. I'm not carrying them over to my children. How do I make sure that I don't transfer to my children? Because if you're not consciously doing it and you're not intentional, trust you me, there's no magic.
Happen.
Even God said, even in the Bible it says you must ask and you shall receive. And then that, faith without acts is nothing. So you must exercise it. It's like, so what? This information, what have you done with it? So it literally became it. And that's the thing that's, they go to church, they don't talk about it. They don't pray, they don't even express it. It's like, oh Lord, just help. No, you're vague with God. That's it. So, and depression is going to be there, and anxiety, and you need to understand that.
Yeah, it's so true. You vague with God, you vague with yourself. Because if you can't say it and you can't hear yourself saying it, then I mean, you can't fix something that's not broken,
Can't fix it.
right?
That's not broken. Yeah. And
Well,
and if you don't call it what it is, it's just hiding there.
yeah, it's
What it
always
is.
going to be
Call it
what
what
you're
it is.
not calling it, you know? If
Calling.
you're
Yeah.
going to say it's
Yeah.
a big spoon instead of a spade, it will stay
Yeah.
there and be a big spoon until you
It'll
say,
be a
spade,
spoon. Yeah.
let's do what
Spade.
we do.
Yeah. Let's do what
So
needs to be
now,
done.
when I was doing some research on, like, I started doing these videos, right? And I'm like, okay, I find out there's something called substance-induced psychosis. And I'm like, "Hebanna," and I started to look around. For me, I think one of the reasons also I started to do these videos is because I'm very inquisitive, and I've always wondered, how did that person lose their mind? How did this person go from being the smartest to picking up papers from the bin? Something must have happened. Then what went wrong, right? So I do this research and I find out there's substance-induced psychosis, which happens a lot in the ghetto. We see every single day, but we have just labeled it "ay usbanibani isdakwa," "ay abonyawupe," and all of these things. Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line between isdakwa and this person is actually suffering from alcohol-induced psychosis?
I mean, I think that's another a very interesting and important conversation that you touch on, because you know, this is what I say. We are all capable of being addicted. Okay, we are all prone to some form of addiction. Okay. And again, it's that thing that we spoke about. You say it can happen to me. So we don't start with that. We say, there's people who are addicted to instability. They're addicted to drama. If there's no drama in their life, as keepy, there must just be drama. There's people who are, who just want to be on the go. They existed to be busy. They don't have time out. They must just look busy. They must just be busy. And then there's people who are just addicted to perfection. They just want to be perfect all the time. To them, because perfect, if things are perfect, sounds like it's a beautiful thing. It's unhealthy. You can't. There's people who are addicted. There's people who are addicted to the gym. Exercising. What's going on? They're addicted to food. People are addicted to shopping. People are addicted to eating. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all forms. But Yabona, what we don't realize is that because these other ones, we don't scrutinize them as negative. We say,
I'll tell you shop,
right. So asikhulume ngey'dawa. Okay. But what we don't realize is that it's like there's a thin line of how you can trigger to that level. But again, it's about mindfulness and knowing thyself and spending time to understand, and also the thing of like disconnecting to escape. People are looking for outlets, to say, oh, okay, we've I don't even want to say we've glamorized. We've sort of like socially accepted. I'm an eating kancane as in kwal, eating kancane, and get the confidence. But it starts like that. But I think even worse, and I think even today I was talking about it. I was saying, and I was like, I'm very concerned about young Black men, because recently when I went to go bury my grandmother, I went to Bushbuck Ridge. I went to a primary school that I went to, and the teacher was telling me, when the kids leave the primary school to go to high school, that's when we lose them, especially boys, because they're normal boys when they're in primary school. Once they get to high school, then they get introduced to smoking cigarettes, and then they start smoking Zol, and then they start binging on alcohol. By the time they leave high school, they are addicts. They're visual. We can see their addiction. It's very clear. And those who graduate and go to university, they even fine-tune it to another level. Then, you know, they start become functioning alcoholics. They're at university, they drunk all the time, but by a pass, so it's okay. You know, they go become a lawyer, it's okay. You know, they go, but they already taking, you know, hectic substance. But it's starting at a very crucial time. You know, they're in high school. Because remember also, the brain of a human being is not fully developed, you know, full on, while they're still a teenager. They're going through different stages. But the addiction is already there. Now multiply that by if there's been addiction in the family, multiply by that if, you know, the mother was drinking, multiply that by other traumas that have been experienced, then it just, so then it becomes radical. So we're not talking about addiction from that level as a country. We're still saying abonyaupe. We don't ask let's take it back to how they got there. I had an experience recently of a young man who almost attacked me again when I was in the village, and I was saying, I literally said, who is this person? What happened? You know, I went and found the mother, and the mother said, you know, my child, you know, is addicted to it. We take him to the psychiatric ward, they inject him. Every time the minute he comes out, he starts taking something. And I said to her, but what happened? How did this happen? Okay, let's say he's 23, 24. She's like, hey, I don't know, you know, it all happened when he was in high school. He was a smart boy and something happened. I'm like, what happened? You know, and then this is in a village. And then she says to me, I don't know, Penny. I've been everywhere. You know, I can't even stay in my house. My child sold everything. I left and whatever. Okay. I said, you know, we need to get this child into rehab or something. You know, and remember this child that tried to attack me. You know what I mean? And then I was like, let me try and help the mother. And then weeks later, you know, she calls me. She says, you know, I have been asking around, you know, something happened to my child. I'm like, what happened? She says, you know what? I think that I must take him to this younger guy. Maybe they can do this for him. And then maybe into Amazons and whatever. I said, I'm not sure. Why do you need to do that? And she said, hey, I just found out that when my child was about 16 or so, he went to go work at some farm. And then another boy was murdered there at the farm. And then my son is like, he witnessed that and whatever. And, you know, and since then, now we must do this thing to free him. But no, that child is just traumatized. He experienced a traumatic experience. It's trauma. The child is traumatized. He went through a traumatic experience. He's never been to counseling about that experience. And then he's been trying to numb the pain as a 16-year-old. His body is physically, he's trying to forget. His body is physically grown, but his mind is stuck on that day. So it doesn't matter how many goats you're going to slaughter. It doesn't matter how many chickens you're going to slaughter. You know, firstly, you need to get him to talk about this. You need to talk to him as a parent to say, you are a child. You don't know what happened. You were not there. You were not responsible for that. There were adults who were responsible for that. It's not your fault. Okay? And actually, these people are supposed to have been arrested. Okay? Now stop taking these things that you're taking in your body. You're harming and you're damaging yourself. But the bottom line is, do you realize that that child was traumatized there? Now, same thing with the boy who went to the school. He got clapped by someone. They forced him to smoke, or he got bullied, or all of those things. Or at home, he got home one day, there was no food. He had to fend for himself. Already something triggered in his day, and then his life changed from like that. And right there, that trigger connects to that ability to be addicted to something. He looked for an escape on that one day, and he just went on that. And then, you know, we're just like, that's what happened. Because nothing just happens.
Nothing just happens. Nothing. And this
happens.
is what I always ask myself, like, what happened? You understand? We, like you're saying, he was a nice boy and everything. What happened? But we as a society are so quick to say, abonyawope, without questioning what happened. So now this is my next question. What do we do about these boys? I'm from Diepkloof, right? And then at Diepkloof Square, there is there's this section. There's this section where there are vendors and people, and then eparen. And so there's lots of abonya ope there. Lots of young, really young boys and girls who just sit there all day.
Yeah.
I mean, 13, 14-year-olds, they're just taking this thing. During the day, maybe they'll cross over, go to the square and work as car guards for 2 seconds. And then as soon as they collect some money, they go back to the other side, buy their drug, and get high. What do you think is the solution? How do we help these boys? How do we help these people who are over there? What do we do?
You know, it's funny you asked me that today, because I've been asking myself that question. I think I came back from Postpartum on Sunday from burying my grandmother, and while I was there were lots of boys who would be coming to my window. Kipa 1 rand, you know, 1 rand this, and then I've just been seeing them, and I've also been asking myself, what do you do? I was like, guys, you know, do we set up rehab centers? Do we speak to? I mean, these families are tired. It's almost like we need to remove these children and go put them in a place where they can be like, they can be drugged with love. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to. It's almost like, you know, we're gonna take away this thing that's supposed to be numbing this pain that they're feeling, but it's like we need to fill them up, because I feel like that place that they escape to and what they do is like they're trying to numb an emotional pain, because I don't think they feel anything physical. Because when you see them, they bump themselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing they're feeling physical. I feel like they're heartbroken. I don't know how to, you know, it's like
they're
this
hopeless.
thing is on
it's
the
like
inside.
They're so hopeless.
They're hopeless.
You know?
Yeah, it's like they're hopeless. Yeah, it's like we can go inject them with hope or fill them with love or something. I don't know what is it that we can do, but I feel like we need to take them away from that space and get them into a place where they can be sober. But then we need to fill them with something. Because whatever it is that led them to that, they think we're trying to feel something. Because again, the thing that we were talking about, we need to start asking what happened. You know what I mean? You know, what really happened? Because most of them, something happened. And even if we think, it's a small thing, some of them will say, you know, everything was fine, and then my dad left. How? And then your dad left, and then what happened? Yeah, you know, I couldn't do it anymore. Or, you know, I watched my mother struggle, do everything, and then one day she just came back from work, and then she was so tired, and she just shouted at me, and I just realized, I'm through fighting harm. You know, and you're like, how? That's not really what your mother wanted. And then there's extreme cases, you know, Ngashawa, my sister got raped, my mother got killed. Do you know what I mean? There's all of that, but it's like, no matter, me and you might think, but it's such a small thing, you know. But to them, at that particular moment, it wasn't a small thing. It was the biggest thing that happened. And then once they crossed over, they couldn't go back. So even if they wanted to go back, they had done so much harm. You know, some of them, they took their parents' things, they sold things. It just became a whole thing. So, you know, we can't go back there and fix what happened, but we can find a way to help them, like, I think, move forward. And there are a lot of them, you know. I mean, there's a lot of them.
No, there's really a lot of them. But now my problem is, because I was asking my dad, right? I'm like, so what can we do? Because now the problem is, now if we're being practical about it, you can't just go over. Because me, I was like, let's find a truck and we put them in the truck and we take them away against their will. Because if we talk to them nicely and say, hi, Masambe, dude, you know, let's do this and this, there's going to be stories, right? But the Lord does not allow us to just take
us to do that.
But now, so that's what I'm saying. If we say we can take them somewhere and do this and this, I don't think this is very practical. I don't know what you think. Because me, I'm like, let's kidnap them and take them away and take them somewhere.
and take them somewhere? I don't
Hmm.
know, because I really also don't know. But I think those that are roaming the streets, the law doesn't allow for them to also just be in the streets. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm.
think that, but there must be a place where they can be sent. But that place where they go, there must be a program of some sort to
Mm.
rehabilitate them. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm.
So because um, these are people who should be contributing to society, to their
And they're
family,
not.
to themselves, to their families, to society. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
it's like a workforce. And some of them were like smart kids. When you listen to them, you're like, what? You know?
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I mean, we know stories of people who were rehabilitated back to normal because somebody just and like was like followed through and looked after them and helped them come out. So
Mm.
I believe that, all is not lost. We just need to have a plan of like how we can help them come out of
But also in your experience, Penny, the thing is for me, I'm like rehabilitation focuses on the addiction, the drug and all of that, right? It
it.
rehabilitates them to
Mm.
stop doing that. But if these people are suffering from some other mental illnesses, I feel like this is the reason why they will rebound. So they will go into
Yeah.
rehab and be clean for that whole period or that whole program, and then they come out back into the streets with the same
Really.
friends and whatnot, and then they go back to the drug again. So is rehab really what they want, or should we be like opening centers, you know,
Yeah.
for psychological help? Because it's not just the
Yeah.
drug that we're fighting against, but it's also the psychosis, it's also the psychological stuff
Yes.
that they are
Yeah.
struggling with.
Yeah. I think actually the second part of like centers um probably speaks to what we're dealing with. Because you're correct when you say rehab just deals with the actual addiction, but there is more underlying stuff. And I think that's what we need in small communities, because also one of the problems that we have is access to
Yes.
psychotherapy. We don't have that. We don't have enough psychologists, in the country. But you can even think about, those we have, they're not affordable. So one of the things for tomorrow for mental health is access.
Mm,
Access to mental health. That
mm,
there is no health without mental health. It's, you know
mm.
what I mean. It's like it's what we need to talk about. And in rural settings, like the example that I was talking about,
Yes.
I was like, where do they go? Where do they go? Is there space for them to go where
Yes.
they can actually get help? There's none. So it gets worse, and then their life deteriorates, and then that's it. So if we could start thinking about having psychotherapy centers in communities,
Mm,
in small communities and townships, because where do they go?
yeah.
There's no way for them
Yeah.
to go.
There's no way.
So
They'll go
unless if
to
their
Deep Loop
family, yeah,
Clinic.
there's no way.
They'll go to Deep Loop Clinic, and
Yeah,
then when they get there, the same
yeah,
nurses who are supposed to help them,
the sameness. Yeah,
they're the ones who are like,
yeah,
yeah, Anna, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
Yeah. All right.
That's true. That's
Now
true.
we'll figure this one out. We'll figure this one out. Now I have an idea, Jorge. Like when I have kidnapped them, where I'm gonna take them and what I will do, I will tell
Take
you
them.
this one day, okay? But let's talk
Yeah,
about mental
yeah.
health in children.